Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees, the podcast. Well, the Yankees put up a horrendous homestand against a couple of usually easy American Central foes there between the Tigers and the Twins. Instead, the Yankees crawl away with just one win out of the 6 games there, getting swept embarrassingly by the Detroit Tigers during a heat wave / food poisoning outbreak, which is kind of weird. And of course, against the usually reliable Twins, where Yankees usually dominate them, instead the Twins take 2 out of 3 against the Yankees, slap them around. Yankees even go into desperation mode, throwing out Brendan Beck there out from AAA to start a game, and he was ineffective well. So, as we see every summer, things seem like the roof's caving in on the Yankees a little bit. You start hearing the clock is ticking on Aaron Boone type of stuff, all that. Again, a lot of stuff seems bleak there, and it kind of is a little bit, but again, I'm going to hold on crazy that I just don't think it's going to get as bad as some of the previous summers there, so I'll kind of break some things down. And we have a little positive news, even though really nobody wants to hear this. The Yankees technically got 4 All-Stars going to the All-Star game. Of course, we all know Judge ain't going to play, but we'll just name all 4 Yankees there. Just give a little breath of some good news, even though you really don't want to hear it. And a little, I guess, update as well on Max Fried taking a couple of important steps as he works his way back into the Yankee rotation, which will be much needed, as Rodon also going down on the IL with quote-unquote elbow inflammation. At least that's what they're saying. So, got some mostly negative stuff there, but again, we'll try to give you a good episode here, a little positivity as well there. Don't jump off the bridge quite yet. So before we get started, make sure to subscribe to this podcast, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcast. There's also the YouTube version of the show. Go to YouTube, search for Section 420 Talkin Yankees. Make sure you also subscribe here wherever you're listening or wherever you get your favorite podcast, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast. So I was more optimistic a couple of weeks back, just looking on your onset. We all knew the bad news, of course. Aaron Judge still going to be out for a while, but I felt this team wasn't going to do what we saw some of the previous years, having these god-awful June and Julys and even into early August there where this team is like teetering for runs. There's always a Judge IL visit somewhere in between, and it just seems like the world's collapsing and everyone's just talking about, all right, this is finally the year they're going to get rid of Fire Cashman, get rid of Boone. He doesn't know what he's doing there. And we go through this, over the past couple of years now. Yeah, anytime Aaron Judge goes down, the team's going to struggle a little bit. I mean, you don't have to be a genius of that, but I felt that at least this version of this, 2026 Yankees were better at least than some of the previous years to kind of wave that, storm a little bit. You're going to hit some bad times there, but wasn't expecting a homestand as we saw. Really just a stretch of baseball as we saw. Really starting with the 4 games in Boston, getting swept, and then it got no better as it came back to New York, getting swept by the Detroit Tigers, and then lose the first game to the Minnesota Twins. They bounce back, finally get a decent start from Garrett Cole, who's been struggling lately, and maybe it will help with some of the rains, but ultimately, offense giving you absolutely nothing there. And again, the Yankees starting pitching ineffective, and you're looking at a 1-5 homestand. Years past, you'd always look at Detroit and Minnesota, and whether on the road or hosting at Yankee Stadium, those are the games you always be licking your chops for some easy wins, and not the case this time around, as the Yankees now face a big task where the losses now drop them 4 games back in the American League East right now after the Tampa Bay Rays yet again, and to make things even worse, 4 games coming up in Tampa, and we all know down St. Pete, it's been a house of horrors for the Yankees there. So you could have a situation where the Yankees might easily find themselves 6 or 7 games back in the American League East before being go to the All-Star break, and really the All-Star break can't get here soon enough to just give this team and a lot of players much needed rest. And of course, this is all go to the backdrop here. Now, I'm not going to break out the excuse machine. It is what it is on the field, but both teams got to play this stuff. But the Yankees, of course, have this whole issue. You got like 3 or 4 guys, quote unquote, with food poisoning. And then, of course, you just go through an unbelievable bad heat wave that just rocked the Midwest, but of New York as well. We had like 3 or 4 games at 100 degrees weather. Again, that's no excuse because both teams got to play through it there. So I look at some of that as well, just, hampering a team there. I mean, you have some guys that are just a little empty with, with the fluids and stuff like that. And you want them to go out there and play in like 100-degree weather a little bit. So, again, I just don't want to make excuses for them. But again, those are things you have to consider there. And, of course, one game, you call a guy up from AAA who, maybe has been putting up some good numbers there, but that's just a crapshoot, a 50-50 pick 'em. I mean, he could have a decent game, he could be good, or he could get this smacked around in 4 innings. And this guy ended up getting smacked around in 4 innings there. And again, the Yankees just overall there, it's been poor play. There's not really, I mean, you could probably point at one thing. I mean, you could point to some, pitching here and there, but overall, Yankees starting pitching has been good. But again, of late, we've seen Cole after a good start not being effective lately, minus that, the latest start against Minnesota. We even seen Cam Schlittler get slapped around in Boston like that. So, these are some things that we're not used to seeing to a little bit. But overall, it's been the offense, which has just been putrid right now. And really, it's been two of the all-stars letting the Yankees down. That'd be Ben Rice and Cody Bellinger. And if you want to look at their last 15 games, we'll first do Ben Rice's line there. Last 15 games, hitting 143, 3 home runs, just 4 RBIs, on-base percentage of 226 there. So the guy, it's less than 300 there. And he works with Cody Bellinger in his last 15 games, hitting 130, 0 home runs, and just 1 measly RBI and an on-base percentage of 242 there. So for Aaron Judge being out, yes, guys that were batting around, and mainly Cody Bellinger and Ben Rice, they were going to suffer. But with that in mind, they're talented enough to not drop this bad there, so they got to be better on that front. And even someone like Jazz now is dealing with a bad toe, since seemingly he's been dealing with this since mid-May, and there was a series he stumbled against the Marlins, had to be taken out of the final game against Minnesota there. And he's another guy hitting a little bit better, but overall, again, he's been a bit of a disappointment as well. So even though Aaron Judge is down, those guys got to be hitting better. The weather's warm right now, the ball flies, especially at Yankee Stadium. Again, they got to be contributing a little bit better to that, and you just see a big drop off in the last 15 games. It seemed like, the first couple of games when Judge wasn't around, the Yankees were kind of weathering through the storm. Like, all right, it's not going to be great, but at least they could get through this. But again, as of late, it's been quite putrid for the Yankees. And again, those are really 3 guys you're depending on in the lineup: Bellinger, Rice, and Jazz there to really pick it up in terms of the production, home runs, and RBI there. So it's really the Yankee offense that's been letting the team down as of late there. And there's some other things floating around. Of course, you had Trent Grisham out for a while with the hamstring thing. Okay, he's finally back. Bednar needed a few days off, go on a paternity leave situation there. So, there's all these little things dangling around the Yankees at the same time there. Again, I'm not going to make excuses for them, but I just don't think it's critically bad there. I don't think we're going to that point where it seems completely hopeless and you got to bring up the fire Boone, fire Cashman lingo, because it's just not going to happen. It would take, the Yankees to completely fall off a cliff, very Mets-like, for that to even be within the conversation there. So I would just say to save your breath there in that situation. This is not going to happen. First of all, Judge got Boone's back. Garrett Cole got Boone back. The main veterans on this team. You don't get the feeling that the clubhouse is in disarray and is infighting and people don't care and they're lethargic, stuff like that. Yeah, just Boone maybe make a wrong decision here or there. Maybe could have, stuck with this guy a little bit longer. Should I pinch it for this guy versus pinch it for the guy? Got that guy okay here and there, but overall, things have been worse with the Yankees and Boone wasn't fired. So I just don't see that's going to happen now, nor with Cashman there. So I'm not going to waste my breath there, nor I don't think that even helps the team at any moment. It's just if you get rid of him, I just don't see a bench coach or whoever replaces him, all of a sudden the team's going to automatically respond there. So I don't think it's a Boone issue. It's just you got a lot of this bad things circling around this team at the moment as the time Judge is out as well there. So I just don't think they'll stay on this little stretch there where this going to completely fall 8 or 9 or 10 games back in the AL East and just be a complete train wreck. Again, it's going to be rocky. It might be a little bit rocky a little bit further there, but just don't go too crazy yet. And overall, as bad as the Yankees been really over the last 2 weeks, the 4 games, maybe it seems a lot, but if you remember, on one stretch, the Yankees were back by 7, literally in the blink of an eye, they made that up. So I wouldn't go crazy at this point. It's not all great there, but they're not really in dire straits yet. In terms of news, you want to see, of course, Cole start being a little bit more consistent. Obviously, he got rocked there in the middle part of the stretch. You're not sure what this whole Carlos Rodon thing, and they diagnosed it as an inflamed elbow. Now, this could be an excuse to get him off. It seemed like mainly just because of the workload, and again, they had those 16 consecutive games without a day off. He is coming back from a surgery a little bit, so maybe they just want to sort of get him off his feet to sort of concocting this little elbow inflammation, just to sort of, just get him some extra rest there. That's very possible, and, just being a coy about it versus, in terms of, is he really hurt? Who knows? So the Yankees are, of course, going to get the 4 games in Tampa. Let's see how it goes. It could be bloody. I think you would definitely settle for 2-2. Just keep things where they are. Then you got 3 games against the Nationals. Now it's in Washington, but Nationals, and again, we've been saying this before, it's a very winnable series. I'm not going to say these games are give-me's there, but, if they got hold 2-2 and then maybe take 2 out of 3 against the Nationals, it'd be great if they take all 3. At least you feel a little bit better. Okay, going to your All-Star break, you got some guys that are going to get some extra rest for a while, in which I think they need, especially these guys who had the food poisoning and whatnot. You hear McMahon's name being thrown out there, Paul Goldschmidt, so forth. Again, I just think the guys could use a little bit extra rest there, because before this kind of, heat wave / food poisoning round were happening, the Yankees were relatively okay kind of just before that Boston series there. So, again, it just seems that week, I don't know, maybe a Red Sox fan put something in their shrimp cocktail. I don't know. But, again, I just don't think it's that dire yet where you don't have to get into the Fire Cashman, Fire Boone situation. And as mentioned before, the Yankees, again, their all-star selections are there. Of course, Aaron Judge getting voted in, which is kind of crazy because he's not eligible, but I guess he's technically making the all-star game. But also joining him will be Cody Bellinger, who hasn't made it since 2019. Again, his career started off great, and he kind of took a bit of a nosedive. He was kind of no man's land a little bit, but kind of resurrected himself with the Cubs, and of course his first year last year with the Yankees. And of course two newcomers, new first-timers there. That'll be both Cam Schlittler, well-deserving, and Ben Rice. Again, even though both of them over the last week or so haven't looked as good as they did, in April, May, but overall going well-deserving. Four guys going to the All-Star game. But really, with the losing, especially, right before like the Sunday game against Minnesota, they were posting on social media like, hey, congratulations, blah, blah. You didn't want to see that because they've just been so bad lately. So it kind of puts a damper on the whole thing. What's going on with this Yankee team? It's just a little different than, in some previous years. I think it's been really at Yankee Stadium. And traditionally, the Yankees have been, very, very good at home. And this season right now so far, they're only 23-20. That's only 3 games over 500 at home. They've lost so many home games, which again, usually against teams like Minnesota and Detroit. And again, I mentioned before, they lost 2 out of 3 at Cincinnati. I mean, a lot of games that usually give me games. Against the Athletics, they lost 2 out of 3. Teams that they traditionally would beat at home there, they've been losing. That's really been kind of the difference, the kind of at least has been hampering the Yankees. They're actually a better away team at 26-20. This at least 6 games over 500. Again, back in the day, at least the Yankees would always just be very dominant at home. That's just not been the case. They've been allowing the road teams to come in and kind of, clean their clock a little bit. Now, does that have to do with Judge being down a little bit? Of course, yeah. But you would think the Yankees have a little bit more advantage just with the starting pitching and the bullpen and so forth. It's not been the case, and it's really, been a bit of their, Achilles heel, is not, doing what you normally do, winning in the Bronx. And another thing has just been the average. Again, there's been the same story with this team for the past couple of years now. But right now, batting average wise, the Yankees are 25th in the league. Now, you want to guess, well, who's number 26? That would be the Mets. So the Yankees batting average-wise are just marginally better than the New York Mets, and we just know how bad they've been so far, getting to the point where it is completely collapsed. And they, again, of course, had to fire Mendoza there. So the Yankees right now just marginally better batting average-wise than the New York Mets, who have the season gone. So this gives you an idea, just some of the ills of this team there. But all that being said, some positive news. Max Fried, who we thought he'd kind of be back by now, but again, this is going to take a little bit longer than we thought it would. So before the Friday game against Minnesota, he did throw a bullpen session. Looks like 36 pitches. Reported no aches or pains or anything like that, so that's good news. And then, of course, before the Sunday finale, did throw some live batting practice. Now, the plan for him is to have maybe 2 or more of those batting practice outings, and then from there, they'll officially sign with some sort of rehab assignment. So, and you kind of knew that was going to happen, so you figure might be maybe, I would guess maybe 2 or 3. Hopefully, it's only 2 warm-up starts, whether that's in AA or AAA, before they want to bring him back up here. And again, they could just use a shot in the arm there because, as we started the season there, we thought the Yankees would be rich in starting pitching, and some things have just, not worked out later. Of course, Cam Schlittler just maybe a little tired a little bit, or just, coming back to earth a little bit, even though not saying it'd be horrible, but not as spectacular as it was in the first 2 months of the season. Cole, after 2 really good starts to start, his comeback for 2026, has struggled of late. You've seen Ryan Weathers, kind of a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde. He had a really good start previously in Detroit, but then, of course, after that, getting rocked at home and getting smacked around against Minnesota. Will Warren, who, got off like 7 wins so quickly there, he's kind of come back to earth a little bit. So, the Yankees kind of, struggling a little bit. And, of course, Rendon, since, he came back, was okay-ish, but then, of course, seen a couple of bad starts there, and now they had to shut him down for a while with this elbow inflammation. So, again, the Yankees seem so rich with pitching overall, but now, again, some guys going down, and obviously the news of Max Fried coming back, obviously doesn't make up for the offense there, but, any type of news like that is good news for the Yankees. So that's the episode. It could get a little bloody in Tampa there, but again, I just wouldn't go too crazy right yet. Again, I think with some pieces coming back after the food poisoning and then the heat wave in New York and stuff like that, I think the team will start be playing a little bit better quality brand of baseball. Obviously, Judge is probably still weeks away. You can consider him as an option. That's looking at until August or there. But again, the couple of guys that are going to the All-Star game, Ben Rice and Bellinger, unless they're hurt or something else is wrong with them, and they got to pick it up. They got to be better than this. And then some of the role players that were doing good for the Yankees, such as, Paul Goldschmidt for a while, who was kind of on fire just around the time that Judge went down there. Again, he seemed to sort of slow down a little bit there. But again, I think a lot of that just had to do with maybe the food poisoning situation there. But some of those guys got to pick it up on there because the offense has got to be better than this. Starting pitching hasn't been great, but overall, this offense has been giving you nothing there. So, if anyone needs to pick it up, it's them. Catch you next time.